Imagine a sleepless night across 20 Russian provinces. As the clock strikes midnight, the usually tranquil sky is suddenly torn apart by the thunderous roar of hundreds of jet engines and rotors. 820 kamikaze UVs and 74 cruise missiles, a volume of fire never before seen in modern warfare, simultaneously rained down like a metallic deluge. Within 40 minutes of pure, unadulterated terror, Russia's notorious S-400 air defense systems fell completely silent, paralyzed in the most literal sense by a multi-layered, multi-point strike from the Ukrainian armed forces. With 2,860 casualties sustained in a single night. These are not merely cold statistics, they're a dagger thrust directly into the heart of the Kremlin's military pride. After months of grueling attrition, a period during which the West began to harbor doubts about Kiev's counteroffensive capabilities, President Volodymyr Zelensky, the indomitable symbol of light and freedom, has made a decision that shifts the gears of history. No longer content with minor, sporadic raids, Ukraine has transformed its approach into a tactical encirclement storm. The stagnation on the Donbass front has been shattered, not by mere infantry, but by artificial intelligence and superior drone technology. While the tyrant in the shadows, Vladimir Putin, remains lost in a dream of imperial restoration built upon rusted, Soviet-era scrap metal, Ukraine has effectively turned the entire Russian sky into a lethal killing zone. From Belgorod and Kursk to Voronezh, the only light remaining is not the glow of city grids, but the hellish orange of 19 strategic fuel depots burning toward the heavens. 8 of the largest oil refineries, the financial lifeblood sustaining Moscow's war machine, have been pierced and incapacitated. At helicopter air bases, 11 combat centers now stand as nothing more than charred scrap metal graveyards. This was not a random bombardment, it was a surgical operation. A high-tech scalpel cutting directly into the central nervous system of the Russian military. Why could a nuclear power like Russia allow 53 military bases to be breached in just one night? The answer lies in the rot, corruption, and illusions of a dictatorial regime that has long since passed its expiration date. While Ukrainian engineers have spent day and night optimizing algorithms for their UVs, the generals in Moscow have been occupied with falsified reports to embezzle defense budgets. The disparity in spirit and logistics between the two sides is insurmountable if Ukraine utilizes swarm intelligence to overwhelm Russian radar, forcing them to waste interceptors on decoys. Then the 74 cruise missiles were able to pierce the gaps to neutralize vital targets. Zelensky's decisiveness in authorizing this campaign demonstrates a bold strategic vision. He did not wait for Western authorization, choosing instead to forge his own destiny through localized, advanced defense manufacturing. Conversely, Putin appears as a fading, defeated dictator, huddled in fortified bunkers while the citizens of 20 Russian provinces are plunged into darkness. This widespread power outage across strategic cities is more than a technical failure, it is the symbol of a crumbling dynasty. These victories are far from minor. Crippling 8 oil refineries is equivalent to severing the financial arteries of Russia without fuel. Tanks are nothing more than immobile heaps of iron. And without electricity, ammunition manufacturing plants are reduced to piles of rubble. Ukraine has successfully brought the war to the aggressor's soil, forcing the Russian people to face the cost of their silence before a tyrant. This strike has delivered a deafening message to Washington, Brussels, and the entire world. Ukraine is capable of winning, and it is winning. The paralysis of Russia's air defenses has exposed a raw truth. Moscow's arsenal is not infinite, and the so-called second-best military in the world is merely a paper tiger propped up by deceptive propaganda. This night of horror will go down in history as a decisive turning point of the 21st century, marking the end of the era of conventional, outdated warfare and ushering in an age of high-tech conflict, where the spirit of freedom always triumphs over oppression. The strategic balance has been shifted permanently. As the dawn of a free, prosperous Ukraine draws ever closer, while the sunset of the Russian Empire fades into the smoke of burning fuel depots. while the sunset of the Russian Empire fades into the smoke of burning fuel depots. The deeper reality is that this devastation is merely the external symptom of a systemic, terminal rot. The question remains, how could a nation posturing as a global nuclear superpower allow 53 of its military bases to be breached in a single, catastrophic night? The answer is not found in a lack of steel or ordnance, but in the institutional decay, rampant corruption, and the delusional arrogance of an autocratic machine that is long past its expiration date. While Ukrainian engineers and frontline operators spend sleepless nights refining AI algorithms and swarm logic, the generals in Moscow remain mired in a culture of deceit, falsifying performance reports simply to siphon off defense budgets and maintain a facade of competence that no longer exists. The chasm between these two sides has become undeniable, defined by a clash between sharp-edged innovation and clumsy, brute force desperation. On one side, we see Ukraine's mastery of swarm intelligence, a tactical marvel that forces Russian radar systems to commit suicide by overwhelming them with low-cost decoys, while Moscow's air defense operators frantically scrambled to engage ghosts on their screens. 74 high-precision cruise missiles, the lethal sting of the operation, found their marks with chilling accuracy. This is the triumph of decentralized, agile ingenuity over the rigid, top-down incompetence that characterizes the Russian high command. At the center of this resurgence stands President Volodymyr Zelensky, a beacon of liberty whose resolve has redefined the scope of this conflict. His strategic brilliance lies in his refusal to wait for permission or external validation. He has instead empowered Ukraine's domestic defense sector to become an engine of sovereignty. By fostering a culture of rapid innovation, Zelensky has enabled Ukraine to forge its own destiny, effectively weaponizing the nation's intellectual capital. Conversely, Vladimir Putin is increasingly exposed as a fading tyrant, isolated within the impenetrable walls of his bunkers, disconnected from the crumbling reality of his own country. As 20 Russian provinces are plunged into darkness, the widespread power outages across strategic hubs like Belgorod and Kursk serve as more than just a logistical failure. They are the visible, glowing symbols of a dynasty in its death throes, struggling to hide the fact that the protector can no longer even keep the lights on for his own citizens. These are not merely battlefield victories, they are strategic tremors that have shattered the Russian war machine's foundation. By paralyzing 8 major oil refineries, Ukraine has effectively severed the financial artery of the Kremlin. Without a steady supply of refined fuel, Russia's heavy armor, once a symbol of fear, is reduced to little more than stationary heaps of rusting iron. Without reliable electricity, the ammunition plants that drive the front lines become nothing more than piles of silent, useless rubble. Ukraine has fundamentally altered the geography of the war by bringing the reality of the front line directly to the doorstep of the aggressor. The Russian populace, long lulled into a state of indifference by state media, is now forced to pay the heavy price for their silence. This is the strategic pivot, when the aggressor can no longer hide the war from its own people. The political pressure within the Kremlin will begin to fracture. We are witnessing the dismantling of an entire military paradigm, where the hubris of a Baochua tyrant is being methodically dismantled by the precision of a nation that refuses to be erased. The myth of Russian invincibility has not just been challenged, it has been permanently debunked by the fires of its own burning refineries, signaling that the architecture of this entire conflict is shifting in favor of those who fight for freedom. As the embers from the smoldering Russian refineries illuminate the darkening horizon, we are witnessing more than just a military setback. We are witnessing the definitive, structural collapse of the Kremlin's traditional power projection. The era of the great power intimidation, once maintained through the sheer, brute force volume of Cold War relics, has officially met its match in the age of decentralized, high-tech asymmetric warfare. For decades, the myth of Russia's invincible military was a psychological weapon, an invisible shield that deterred direct confrontation and kept the Kremlin's neighbors in a state of perpetual, anxious compliance. That shield has been shattered, not by a massive, conventional invasion, but by the relentless, surgical precision of Ukraine's innovative drone swarms and long-range cruise missiles. This tactical victory serves as the death knell for Russia's credibility on the global stage. When the world's most touted air defense networks, specifically the S-400 systems that Moscow has sold to allies as the ultimate guarantee of sovereignty, fail to detect or intercept a synchronized strike of nearly 900 assets, the global arms market is forced into a chaotic reevaluation. Nations that once purchased Russian weaponry as a hedge against insecurity are now viewing those systems as obsolete liabilities. The paper tiger narrative is no longer a critique, it is a verified reality. This collapse in military prestige is inextricably linked to the Kremlin's diplomatic influence. As Moscow's capacity to secure its own borders and infrastructure is demonstrably hollowed out, its ability to influence the geopolitical calculus of neutral nations evaporates. Furthermore, this operation signals a profound shift in the fundamental nature of global security. We are transitioning away from an era defined by massed armor and static defenses toward a future dominated by intellectual capital, algorithmic warfare, and the rapid deployment of AI-integrated systems. The Ukrainian armed forces have demonstrated that when a nation is motivated by the existential imperative of freedom, it can rapidly compress decades of technological evolution into months of operational reality. By bypassing the bureaucratic stagnation and rampant systemic corruption that define the Russian command structure, Kiev has effectively outthought and outmaneuvered an opponent that remains shackled to the doctrines of the past. The economic implications of this shift are tectonic. By systematically paralyzing the core of Russia's oil refining infrastructure, Ukraine has turned off the tap on the regime's primary source of war funding. This is not merely a strategic disruption, it is a long-term debilitation of the Russian state's capacity to continue its aggressive expansionism. The internal political reverberations of these failures, the blackouts in major cities, the fuel shortages paralyzing transport, and the undeniable exposure of the Kremlin's weakness will likely serve as the primary catalyst for deep-seated domestic instability. The social contract of the Russian autocrat, which promised stability in exchange for total political subservience, has been irrevocably broken. When the protector can no longer protect his own cities from the consequences of his own imperial folly, the internal architecture of his power begins to fracture. Looking ahead, the international community is beginning to calibrate its response to this new reality. The perception of Russian strength was a key factor in keeping global powers on the fence, waiting for the inevitable conclusion to the conflict. That calculation has now changed. Policymakers in Washington, Brussels, and beyond are recognizing that Ukraine possesses not just the resolve to fight, but the strategic maturity to dictate the tempo of the conflict. The shift in the balance of power is permanent. The sunset of the Russian Empire, flickering in the fires of its own burning refineries, marks the arrival of a new, harder-won era of European and global security, one where technological sovereignty, democratic resilience, and the unyielding spirit of a free people define the outcome of the struggle. Ultimately, the lesson of this night is that the architecture of power has changed. Autocracy, with its inherent rigidity, corruption, and disconnect from objective reality, cannot survive the speed and transparency of the digital age. In contrast, the flexible, innovative, and mission-driven approach of the Ukrainian command has proven that even the most formidable historical behemoths can be dismantled when met with the clarity of purpose and the force of superior execution. The future belongs to those who adapt. As we look at the ruins of the Russian strategic infrastructure, we see not just the end of a conflict, but the birth of a new global order, one where the sanctity of borders and the integrity of democratic institutions are defended with the precision of the future, rather than the ghosts of the past. The empire's long, dark night is ending, and a new, clearer dawn is beginning to break across the horizon. This conflict is far more than just a series of numbers on a map. It is a testament to the relentless, unfolding motion of history. The truth is being laid bare more clearly than ever before. And we are committed to standing alongside you to cover every pivotal development, providing the sharpest and most objective analysis available. If you found this deep dive insightful and wish to continue tracking the shifting landscape of our global order with us, please show your support by hitting the like button to help this information reach more people. Most importantly, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a strategic update. Your engagement is the fuel that drives our mission to maintain this standard of reporting and to keep digging into the complexities of our time. Thank you for your time, your trust, and your dedication to seeking the truth in an age of uncertainty. We look forward to seeing you in our next analytical deep dive. Until then, stay informed and stay vigilant.